It is the present year.
Correct.
Mighty number 9!
On June 21st, 2016, Mighty number 9 released after a Kickstarter campaign that raised around $4 million at the end of 2013. However, even well before release, the game had already accrued a violent negative reception, ranging from the frequent delays, overextension of new projects, and
what's the point in going over the history? You've all heard this already. There are plenty of videos going over it already. In fact, I'd wager it's basically all of them. Yeah, something I've noticed these last 10 years is that nobody ever wants to talk about anything Mighty number 9 post-release. Every discussion about this game is completely dominated by the lead-up. Nobody ever wants to actually discuss the game.
is that a problem? Yeah, I think it is. Not only did it really feel like everybody was predisposed to hate the game on principle, they resorted to doing it in bad faith just to make their point. That common gotcha that the Wii U version bricked consoles happened to one guy, and when he claimed bricked, what he meant was, my console froze and I had to unplug it, but it worked after that. Yeah, guess what? Okami did that to me once, so I guess that game's bad too. But outside of that, it disappoints me personally because, as I said in my review 10 years ago, I like this game. I like it enough that I've bought it several times over. I originally chose the Wii U version as my backer reward because it just made the most sense for me at the time. I then bought the PS4 version a couple years later because it was cheap and I wanted a physical copy and a better performing one. And despite it being used and the code being expired, the DLC code in the box still worked, so I not only got the DLC, but also access to a cross-buy that included the PS3 version and the Vita version that's definitely coming out soon. Then I bought the PC version because it was cheap. Then I went to RWX, and I swear every vendor selling Wii U games had at least one copy of Mighty number 9, so I bought one because I felt bad and wanted to take it off their hands. Then I got the Xbox One Signature Edition because even 10 years on, these are still really cheap. This was less than $30 new, and I didn't have the Xbox One version, probably because I don't have an Xbox. So I own every retail version of this game, physical and digital, except the 360 because that's impossible to get now. Despite the numbers my last video pulled, I know I'm not some authority. The public opinion on Mighty number 9 has had a decade to solidify, and the discussion about the game has long since ended, so nobody wants to re-examine their biases now. This is more for me. I had only been making videos for half a year when I did the first Mighty number 9 video, the top 11 list was right after, and the next one was an unscripted vlog. I wanted to take the anniversary opportunity to go deep into the game and really explain why I feel the way I do, just so I can say my piece and hopefully explain why I feel this game has gained such an unfairly harsh reputation. After a short intro that really does the bare minimum in establishing the world, a simple 20XX really does a lot, we're dropped into the intro stage. I don't know, I guess we're looking at the graphics, might as well talk about them now. The game's graphics get a lot of flack, yet whenever anyone says that, they only ever talk about the explosions. And I think the visuals are passable. Certainly nothing impressive, but the image is clear, everything is visually distinct, and the underlying character design is strong. They're even trying some squash and stretch, and while I don't think a story about robots is the best place to use that, it's nice to see them even attempt it. I think expectations need to be set correctly on this. I've seen people point to this art in the crowdfunding campaign to say that it was originally promised to be hand-drawn 2D, But that was never said. People just don't know what concept art is, I guess. $4 million is a lot for a Kickstarter to raise, especially at the time, but it's pretty low for game development, and we don't know how much Deep Silver pitched in as a publisher. Just the reveal trailer for Mega Man Dual Override at the Game Awards was probably closer to that cost than we'd like to admit. The game was developed by Inti Creates, a small studio that, at the time, only had 94 employees and has barely grown since, and their forte is sprite-based 2D games. The only two games they had developed in Unreal Engine at the time were Galgun and Double Piece, games that are also visually very low budget, and had the benefit of only releasing on 1 or 2 platforms at launch, while this needed to fit onto systems as old as the 360 and as difficult to work with as the PS3 and Wii U. Actually, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, the only multi-platform at launch releases Inti had done at the time were Mega Man 9 and 10, which were far simpler games to port, and Double Piece, which was across the Vita and PS4, which I'd bet are really similar. All this to say that maybe Inti Creates wasn't the best choice, but Inti had proven themselves to make great Mega Man games. I would have trusted them too. If anything, I'd be more inclined to agree if the complaint wasn't towards the visuals, but the performance, because that's a lot rougher. I thought it was fine on base PS4, but there's empirical evidence showing that even there it was flawed. Given the circumstances of its development, as outlined already, I think it's understandable how it ended up this way, but if it gets in the way of playability, it gets in the way. Thankfully, it's mostly a non-issue today. The footage you're looking at is the PS4 version as played on my PS5, and while I don't have the hard data to say it's perfect, it feels pretty damn good. I was originally going to use the PC version for recording, which I felt was perfect, but it turns out I have no idea how to record nice footage on PC without overloading the encoder. Even my 2015 laptop I replaced 3 years ago cleared the recommended requirements, so any computer today should be fine. But even still, as I said, I first played the game on the Wii U, commonly said to be the worst version. The initial review was done with that. It struggles, but I can still play it. I've dealt with worse. You ever play the finale of Ultimate Ninja Storm 3 on PS3? Actually, speaking of the PS3, I think the frequent pauses in that version are worse, so keep that in mind if you are planning on playing the PS3 version as your primary in 2026. The one thing about the visual presentation that really bothers me is the cutscene animation. Static poses and camera angles, that's fine with me. That's about what I'd expect for a game of this caliber. Why don't their mouths move? My standards aren't high. I don't need lip syncing. I would have settled for a flickering mouth texture like Powered Up managed. I mean, I can live with it. I've played through the full .hack GU series which did the same thing. It just feels like they could have done it. I don't know, maybe they saw Battle Network and Star Force having mouth animations while Zero and ZX didn't, and they got it in their head that they just didn't need them. I think the Galgun games are their only ones with mouth animations, so that might be correct. At least they didn't skimp on the voice talent. Not just Japanese, but French and English voices, something we still can't get Inti Creates to consistently do. And they paid for some top quality talent, which probably ate up a not insignificant portion of the budget. Yuri Lowenthal, Steve Bloom, Fred Tatasciore, Matt Mercer, there's some big names in here. They even managed to get a former Mega Man. Dr. White is voiced by Jason Spizak, previously Geostellar in the Mega Man Star Force anime, and therefore subsequently in the Legacy Collection.
EM wave change! Geostellar! On the air!
Same thing happened in Japanese. Mighty No. 6, Avi, is voiced by Shotaro Morikubo, the voice of X between X5 and X7. I wouldn't say anybody gives a great performance. Steve Bloom just naturally sounds cool, but I've grown to appreciate them all. They fit the characters and they're memorable. So congrats, Mr. Lowenthal. You came out of this pretty unscathed, outside a bad read or two.
Mick! And still operational! just as the professor predicted.
And despite the fact that you gave a phenomenal performance as the lead in a show I basically worship, there's a real chance you'll be signing this for me instead should we meet. And the music? That's a little harder to say. It's good, I got the soundtrack as a backer and they're quality tracks, but they have a bad tendency to go in one ear and out the other, you know? They even included 8-bit versions of every track as a toggle.
Hey, guess who has 3 copies of Mighty Number 9, fully intended to turn that on so I could demonstrate it, and then forgot to do it? Hey!
Wow, that was a long tangent. Yeah, I never know how to naturally fit in discussion on the presentation, but now I've gotten it all out of the way so we can actually examine how it plays. Obviously, being the spiritual successor to Mega Man, potentially even the progenitor of the Kickstarter successor, it's obviously going to be similar. Beck here is still the jump and shoot man, similar movement speed and jump arcs, even the same limit of 3 lemons on screen at a time. Except he feels heavier? That's awkward. I've talked before about how every Mega Man inspired game just copies the feel of the originals because Capcom got it down perfect. Even Inti usually gets that right, so I don't know how this happened. Still, it's not that hard to get used to, so we can comfortably progress through the stage until we get to the combat tutorial. This is where Mighty Number 9 really reveals its hand. See, Beck doesn't defeat enemies just by shooting them. Okay, he can, but Gunvolt can also shoot darts at people until they die. You're really not supposed to. Shooting them enough causes their cells, the building blocks of robots in this universe, to destabilize, at which point Beck can absorb them by dashing into them. Thankfully, the hitbox for absorption is pretty generous. It'll work if you're anywhere remotely close to them. Depending on the enemy type, each of them turns a different color upon being destabilized, which gives Beck a different effect when absorbed. Blue ones are the most common, and they slowly fill a sub-tank for use at the touch of a button. Generally, a stage has enough of these for 2 full fills. The others instead immediately grant a temporary buff. Yellows increase defense, greens increase speed, and red not only increases damage, but also makes the basic buster shots go through walls and other enemies. And they're pretty smart about how they place them. Chase coming up? Green guys will be ahead of that. Next section either has rows of enemies or requires shooting through walls. They'll be red guys. This is one of the more contentious design decisions Mighty Number 9 made, with claims that it overcomplicates the gameplay loop. I guess I can see, but I don't agree with it. This game is very free about its dashes. They're easily spammable and there's no limit to air dashing, so constant dashing for speed is already encouraged. Since enemies stop attacking when they're broken down, at least for a while, picking them up is more of a side effect. You can consider them dead when they change color, and you'll probably get their bonus when you run past. Not to mention, because there's the extra step, they balance it by giving enemies lower base HP, so it's easier to just keep your flow up and not really need to stop. It makes me sad that, presumably, the game's poor reputation has limited its audience, because Mighty Number 9 is built for speed. and the speedrun I watched right before recording to learn those 6 strats was a lot of fun. And I wonder if the reason behind this being controversial is expectations. I'd argue the biggest reason the Mighty No. 9 Kickstarter was so successful is because it dropped right in the middle of the Crapcom era. The wounds of all their cancellations were still fresh, and people wanted the creator to show the big company how it was done and make a new Mega Man game. But I don't think Inafune wanted a replacement. He wanted to make something inspired by Mega Man. There were always going to be more differences in the formula than the audience bargained for, and I think that's a good thing. There's a lot of classic Mega Man games already that are functionally all the same. Just changing the characters was not going to be enough to stave off the repetition. If Mighty No. 9 was just a Mega Man game, it might have been more warmly received, or not because, as I said, nobody cared about the game itself, but it would have been way less interesting. The rest of the intro stage is what you'd expect, just some time to get a feel for the controls and some of the enemy types, until we reach the boss. This guy! It's a comfortable first boss, slow, visible patterns, good as a training ground. It also gives the player a chance to get to grips with the gimmick bosses use. After a certain amount of damage has been dealt, around 20 to 25%, the boss begins to destabilize in purple, at which point no further damage can be dealt until that damage has been absorbed with a dash. If you don't do it promptly, they begin to recover their red health and you're at risk of losing all your work. Personally, I don't really have a problem with this system. It's a way to bring in the core gameplay mechanic into the bosses, which also helps to make the Buster more viable, since limits to the amount of damage dealt at once means bosses don't need to have invincibility frames. It makes it easier to add HP gates for when bosses enter their next phases while making that clear to the player. And, as I've said, the absorption radius in dashes is very large. Bosses at the top of the screen aren't immune. Unfortunately, it doesn't help with the few bosses that can leave the screen as part of their cycle, so poor timing on the critical blow can really screw you. It might have made more sense if the bosses were at least temporarily stunned when destabilized. Alright, now that all the heroes have regrouped, we can take stock in the plot. So we've got Beck, his creator Dr. White, White's co-worker Dr. Sonda, and Sonda's support robot Call. I just want to take a moment to shout out Beck and Call, excellent naming. They're matching names but completely distinct from rock and roll, yet having the same sound so you immediately know they are analogs. All the robots in the world suddenly went crazy at the same time, and nobody understands why it's happening, only that Beck is seemingly immune due to his assimilation ability. The one lead is that the CEO of the giant robot corporation Cherry Dynamics, Gregory Graham, insists that it's the work of a Dr. Blackwell, though White and Sonda are skeptical since, you know.
Jail.
Right now, everyone's more focused on stopping White's other 8 mighty numbers and using that data to pinpoint the problem independently. So now we pick our first mighty number to conquer. Personally, I always go for Mick first, but I found a Mighty No. 9 iceberg on Reddit that includes Buster only mine is barely possible, so I guess I'm just built different. It's definitely not the most beginner-friendly stage because its big gimmick is these giant drills that are instant kills, including a chase with one at the end that requires getting the red attack buff and destroying blocks ahead of time through walls, or you can't aim to hit them. And some of those blocks contain these little guys that are too short to shoot, and you don't have time to wait for an opportunity, so I've been known to face tank through them, which is not what I'd call good design. Thankfully, I find Mick to have a pretty simple pattern, so once you learn the stage, the boss at the end is no worry. We take down Mick, Beck purges the infection from his brother, and now it's back to selecting the next stage. If we now look through the list of options, we see that Brands now has an extra advice button, where Mick says he's on the case but needs assistance. This is your clue that Brand's weakness is Mick's weapon. This, again, is a controversial decision, simply giving the player the weakness order, but one that's always been a plus to me. When I first got Mega Man 11, the very first thing I did was go online and look that up, That's always what I've done, and it's Capcom approved since the Legacy Collection includes a card with all that information. The trial and error system I feel is just a waste of my time, and the most I'm willing to compromise is the way Mega Man 2 The Power Fighters did it, where you could get an incredibly obvious but technically not outright said hint. You don't even really need it. This game is a lot better than most Mega Man games in intuiting the order. Bomb beats construction and cutting beats electric, Mega Man 1 taught us that. Wind beats fire and fire beats ice are both common sense. The guy that flies out of reach most of the time? Sniper rifle. Brand stage is pretty easy to get a grasp on, it is just a run along highway traffic. Complete with billboards for Egoraptor making their 2 Inti Creates Mega Man games with Aaron Hansen in them.
You fucking piece of garbage, shit-ass penis licker! Licking penis!
And the Proto Men.
Hey, it is the current year if the Proto Men are advertising again.
Of course, touching the road anywhere is fatal, so there's a lot of danger zones. Just remember that you've got infinite dashes and it should work out. Just keep an eye out for those spinning wheel guys that Mega Man just loves so much, and this flying thing that takes way too many shots to kill for how far out of range it stays, and drops floating mines that can end your jump real quick. You're supposed to shoot one of the mines down and get across in the period before another one appears, but they always make me so nervous. Brand himself is a fan favorite for having a cool design, 2 swords, which is always awesome, and being the only one actively resisting the corruption. If he kills you, he even sounds remorseful over it.
No! I told you to stay away! Back!
If you fight him Buster only, it's a dangerous and hectic fight, and let's face it, you will be fighting him Buster only. See, Mixed Weapon has a specific problem, and that's that it's shit. It's like the charge kick from Mega Man 5 in that it's about smacking your face into the enemy, but Beck just bounces off of them instead of going through, and it only makes him immune to contact damage. Brand's swords can still hurt. It's also surprisingly hungry for such a bad weapon. Get used to your Buster, it's your best choice for a fight that's not easy. Next is Dyna, whose stage contains 2 enemy gauntlets with small enemies, so I'd recommend already getting some use out of Brand's weapon. It's got good vertical standing reach, extremely fast, and unless you use the special techniques that I've never once learned, it doesn't cost any energy to use. And most famously, and without explanation, Beck is completely invincible while swinging. You'd have to mash really hard to get through tough stuff without getting hit in the frame between swings, but it's possible. I'll admit to trying it when I was just getting started. It won't help you against the actual worst part of the stage, and this is infamous. These giant turbines are instant kill. That part's fine, the radio chatter warns you about that, and this game is good about making environmental instant kill hazards have a purple glow to make them easy to spot. There's also only 2 that you really have to deal with. The problem is how you get past them. See, this game has a mechanic called crouch dashing. Holding down while dashing makes Beck dash lower to the ground. Not only is that unintuitive, this is the only time in the game it's required. Most gaps and walls that would require it are nice enough to automatically initiate the crouch dash. And that purple glow I mentioned makes it harder to judge where the actual hitbox is, because you need about every inch of that crouch dash to get through. I probably haven't actually died to this since close to the game's launch, but I get sweaty every time. You know, Brand, this might have been a nicer thing to help me with. That's one of the biggest innovations Mighty No. 9 introduces, boss assistance. In Mega Man 1, the Robot Masters were all basically brothers to Mega Man, but even in Powered Up, the only time that mattered was that some of them knew Roll enough to hit on her. Here, it's still not much, but they pitch in and help in one stage each, getting rid of an obstacle. In concept, I really like this idea. It gives more to the boss order besides just their individual fights, kinda like Mega Man X1. In execution... See, the big problem is that not only is each Mighty Number assist only for one set piece each, half of them don't actually do anything. Brand clears out a tube from these little crawlers, but they were outside on the glass. It doesn't matter at all. It's better than X6's nightmare effects, since none of them are actively detrimental, but it's without question undercooked. And since it happens during the stage, they don't get any character interplay with each other. We needed more of that. All we have is a running gag that 3 of them love sharing puns with each other and everybody else hates it, and that is really funny, but it's all we get. Not a lot to say about Dinah herself. Despite flying, Brand can utterly demolish her. I just want to bring up that her torso that you basically never see is a light bulb, because the character designs in this game are so good. Heatman was just a lighter. Pyro's body is designed like the wick of a lighter, which ignites as he powers up. I love it. Everybody is instantly recognizable and memorable. If anything, Beck is the weak link. His limbs are a little too noodly for my liking. Quick story interlude where Dr. White suddenly has a revelation about the source of the infection, but he doesn't say anything about it yet. But first, more dated than the pronoun usage in Gunvolt 1's first translation, this game came out at a time where Neil deGrasse Tyson was still respected. This was post Gravity Falls, so I understand liking him there, but somehow I don't think that's what they were going for. Next is Shade, and his stage is really unique, really striking out from any Mega Man game beforehand. It's a completely open stage, with the gimmick being to hunt down Shade while he snipes you out. On paper, this is cool, running through tight hallways while avoiding the bullet lines and ricochets. In execution, it's not great. Every hallway feels basically the same, and they all end up in some open room before going to another hallway, and because the developers don't exactly know where you should be at any given moment, there's no checkpoints until you're at the boss himself. Which is a problem, because they start adding these electric wires that, as you can see, are purple, so instant death. I'd like to thank the speedrunner, I ain't trying to pronounce that, for teaching me this strat to keep Shade out of the worst rooms and finish the stage quickly. Now that we've got a few, I wanted to go over the process of cycling weapons. The most classic method in Mega Man is pausing the game and selecting it from a menu, with later games adding a quick cycle with the shoulder buttons. Yeah, this game doesn't do that. No pausing for starters, so everything has to be done in real time, and the switching isn't instant. You need to cycle to the weapon from a menu, then hit the button to confirm. I think this might have needed to be done because every weapon changes Beck's design, a concept that dates all the way back to Mega Man 1 and the Blue Bomber himself wouldn't tackle until 2 years later in 11. Maybe they just thought it would be too weird to do it immediately, or maybe there was a technical reason they couldn't keep all the models loaded into active memory, but it takes something that was so natural and overcomplicates it. I already play Mega Man usually sticking to the Buster and going to the weakness weapon when needed, but this game encourages that mentality because it's so cumbersome to frequently use weapons, even with quality of life concessions like swapping the order of entries in the menu, or 3 quick select options. It's a shame because they did make some legitimate improvements to the weapon formula. Weapons now all recover energy on their own if left to idle for long enough, and a chunk of it is restored upon absorbing an enemy. In regular stages, this makes weapons more free to use since you'll be absorbing enemies frequently, while making bosses more strategic to make each shot count. It also means that every weapon is restored on death. That's nice. Just one issue, weapons don't recover energy if they're not active, so if they run out during a boss fight, you're really gonna just wait for it to come back? No, you'd switch back to your Buster, and unless you want to then switch back just to dash into them when they turn purple, you're now just kinda stuck with the Buster. If you're playing well, this isn't going to be a problem, but it can become that way if things go south. Maybe an energy balancer would have been the fix? Or at least let me use the Buster while another weapon is out like Mega Man 8 did. Avi's up next, pretty standard stage. Only thing of particular note is that it contains our first mini-boss against this helicopter with the turrets with bad keyframes. Yeah, they just don't animate. Since it happened on Wii U, I figured it would have at least been solved on PS4, but I guess they just couldn't handle it. For what it's worth, it is fixed on PC, and it threw me off seeing that. I figured it would have been broken everywhere. Pyro follows, and since he's Mighty Number 1, it's probable that this was the first stage a lot of players picked. I'd say it's the most combat-focused stage of the 8, with a lot of enemies in the way, including forced encounters. They even put them into the background to contend with their fireballs during platforming. Damn, this is turning into X6. Even the ground isn't safe. Several plots are covered in oil, which is not only slippery, but can ignite and become a massive hazard. Pyro himself, he's gotten flack for having an instant kill grab that's difficult to read.
I say skill issue.
What comes after 1 but 2, so it's Mighty Number 2 Cryo. Every Mighty Number has a full name. I've been using the more casual shortened ones up to now, but I really like that they have it. Nobody gets pigeonholed into being an animal or man, but they're still memorable. Even if in Cryo's case I get confused. It's Cryosphere, not Cryoshell, and I think I'm the only person in the world with both Mighty Number 9 and Bionicle enough in their head to routinely mix them up. Anyway, Cryoshell stage is a mix of both the water and ice stage, and as someone who leaves all his displays at 0% brightness, this is targeted harassment. It's not a difficult section for how much air Beck can get with a high jump and infinite air dashes, and the ice part isn't that bad either. The heavier controls actually help, with the mini-boss that reminds me of something whose name escapes me not really being a problem. It's just this one jump. Small platform, ice physics, needing to stand there to shoot the enemy, and if you get hit, dead. Because Mighty Number 9 spikes still kill you even in post-hit iframes. There's a certain amount of leniency you have to give a game like this for being the first of its series. Not every single design lesson taken from Mega Man is necessarily applicable. This is something that was fixed all the way back in 1988. Inti Creates has never made this mistake before. What happened this time? And waiting at the end is Cryo herself.
Why the fuck you so goddamn cute?
I've heard people say she's annoying. I can't agree. Her one character trait is ice puns, but she is just so upbeat, earnest, and protective about it that it becomes so unbearably charming. And the writers are going so far with it, just the perfect balance of being forced but actually kinda clever. I can say from experience that I can't write this well. I had so much trouble with the fight itself, but I just can't hate her. All the characters are enjoyable on a simplistic level. I can see why one of the spin-off projects was an animated series. Mighty Number 9 would totally work in a format like Mega Man Fully Charged did. In a quick interlude between stages, we learn that Dr. White has a hunch about the source of the robot rampage being the result of a project he himself had developed while he still worked with Cherry Dynamics. One he seems very protective of.
Blackwell only saw the dangers. He never understood the potential.
The final Mighty Number is Bat. Most players recommend tackling him first because he's got a great weapon, so it's really unfortunate that my preferred order puts him last. I should probably actually try going after him Buster only one of these days. He's just a bit more frantic in a fight and it makes me nervous. In terms of platforming, this is some of the more technical stuff because of the conveyor belts and production lines. I think the end goes a bit too crazy with the mines, but on the route I've taken, it makes for a solid conclusion to the Mighty Numbers. Alright, so the immediate problem has been averted, it's time to start making moves for the Mastermind. Beck and Dr. White make for Cherry Dynamics to put a stop to their haywire robot manufacturing and grill Graham, while Cole and Dr. Sonda head for the prison where Dr. Blackwell is being held for more answers. The player gets to choose which stage they want to do first. There's no reason to do one before the other. I went for the prison first this time. One of the stretch goals in the Kickstarter was a stage for Call, and I bet many people were expecting something like Roll and Powered Up, a different character that's still an equal. But no, if there's anything Call isn't, it's an equal to Beck. It makes sense for the story. Call is just meant to be a support robot, while Beck's only job seems to be a fighter in the Colosseum, and it almost works here, just not quite. I've heard people sour on Call between reveal and release because her personality is just robotic monotone, but unfortunately that's one of my exact weaknesses, so someone is calling my name. Because Call isn't meant for battle, the prison is a stealth stage. It's about collecting keycards while avoiding turrets and camera drones, and she has a different skill set more suited for that. The ability to duck and crawl, hover, put up an energy shield, it's all meant to be more methodical. The fact that she can only fire one weak shot at a time doesn't matter so much, because she's not supposed to be killing anything. I like what they did with these big guys. It's not just shooting them, it's specifically distracting them so they kill themselves. That's clever. Unfortunately, the level designers didn't fully get the memo. She gets this enemy rush, but because Call doesn't have the ability to absorb enemies, you have to just shoot them with her slow shot until they die. And in contrast to how quickly they could be destabilized, it takes a long time to shoot them to death. This doesn't really have anything to do with her abilities, but I hate this part here. Call needs to take this ride up, but they put a keycard halfway up in a box. All the other ones up to now have been hidden in boxes, I should have guessed. But if you miss it, good luck getting back down without automatically clinging onto the hoop and taking constant damage from the turrets. Despite the crate being right there, if you miss it, it's easier to just die. Worst part of the game, for sure. She also gets a boss all her own, this giant guard dog. I like the idea. It's not so much about just blasting the boss, but taking out its eye to trick it into eating bombs. However, not only does that reduce it to a very easy pattern that repeats too many times, but it's not clear how to make sure the supply robots drop a bomb rather than just another eye. I think it has something to do with Call's distance when the crate is destroyed, but I really don't know. Getting to play as Call is neat, but I think I wouldn't lose anything if this stage didn't make it in. Meanwhile, at the robot factory, Beck's got it a lot better. Now that they know you have every weapon, they can incorporate platforming and puzzles that make use of their specifics. And since the weapons functionally have infinite ammo here, I don't mind that as much as I do in Mega Man. I thought it was so cool when I saw a trailer show off that Shade's ricochet shots did miraculous work clearing the path ahead, and wouldn't you know, the switch at the top requires that exact weapon. I'm telling you, this game is smarter than it gets credit for. All the rest of the Mighty Numbers are also pitching in, and they're so happy to see their little brother show up to the party. We get this cool moment where everybody is finally working together, and frankly, that's just really nice. But remember when I gave a pass to the visuals for being clear and distinct? This room is the exception. There's just too much going on that your eyes can't focus on any one thing, and they made the interesting decision to make the primary enemies here the smallest ones. It's also the only time we get to see the Mighty Numbers interact with each other, and regardless of how underdeveloped it is, it's neat. Also, the boss is the mother computer cranking out battle bots, and when you take one out to attack the core, you can see a new one being built in the back as an indicator how long you have to deal damage, and it's small and barely worth mentioning, but I like it. And now that both stages have been completed, it's finally time for all the big reveals. All the robot destruction to now has been the work of Trinity, an old creation of Dr. White's that was designed to continuously grow and evolve. But apparently he saw no issues with leaving the directive at that, because her interpretation has been to assimilate and absorb every single robot. Graham had attempted to activate her once before and was only stopped when Blackwell shut down all the robots to stop her, which is how he ended up imprisoned, so now nobody was stopping Graham from trying again to... we don't know exactly what he expected to gain. All we've got is that while he is technically responsible for everything going wrong, it's not directly his actions, so he's technically not the Dr. Wily equivalent. With all that established, all that's left is for Beck to drop into the center of Trinity's infection to restore her as well and put an end to everything. I'll give the game credit, despite having a perfect excuse to do so with all the cells under her control, there's no boss rush. Yeah, it's a standard, a Mega Man game would feel empty without it, but I've seen it enough there that I'm content with never seeing a boss rush again anywhere else. Still, the cell blocks aren't much better. This is the big gimmick of the stage, these orbs that turn into blocks after taking enough damage, which can then be destroyed entirely. The problem is they respawn immediately if you get far enough away, but the game insinuates it has to do with the number of cells surrounding that spot. It's very poorly explained. Finally, Beck has come face to face with his predecessor, Trinity, for the final battle. I gave this fight some grief in my original video for being too difficult, and I think that's the biggest clue to how quickly I put that together because it really isn't hard anymore. She starts off paying homage to the Yellow Devil, but with the easiest pattern yet. It's just up to down, and then coming back is down to up. And the rest is just riding the rising floors and avoiding the stream of projectiles. The second phase is hell on your fingers if you're trying to buster it, but as soon as you learn that Bat's weapon is the best, it's incredibly easy. The stem of her flower is another instance of missing animation, but in this case I think it works. It makes it look like she's glitching out, which she is. Sadly, since it is a glitch, this is also missing on PC. Just be sure not to get caught off guard by the fact that no matter if she has no health, she needs to finish her current attack before the finishing blow can be struck. With the crisis averted, everybody is back together, safe and sound, in this ending with no narration. Trinity is also given a new, far inferior body. It's cute that they reused Inafune's entry in the call voting contest, but her original, more Metabots design was way better in my opinion. It really sells that she was a prototype. The credits begin, backed by a song by Megaran Raheem Jarbo, a rapper with a far longer Wikipedia page than I expected. I only knew the name because of this. Sorry. Now if they actually got the Proto-Men, I would have locked in. And one of the most infamous elements of the game begins, the 4-hour list of the names of every backer, or at least every backer that took the effort to send their names in. They do give you the ability to search a number out to highlight it, purely for the benefit of being able to point and say,
Here I come. Oh, here I come.
But I appreciate it. Now there is a post-credit scene, but before I get into that, I wanted to clarify something I said in the original review. I said that between this and Recore, it's clear Inafune really misses Maverick Hunter. Recore is a game Inafune worked on with Armature Studio that released a little later in 2016. This game is available on Steam and it's been pretty cheap. I should probably give it a try one day. Armature was primarily a porting house, one that moved to specialize in VR. They developed the VR port of Resident Evil 4 before being acquired by Meta and subsequently shut down earlier this year. One of their projects that never saw the light of day was Maverick Hunter, a gritty take on Mega Man X that looked like the Bomberman Act Zero of the franchise, and I think we all agree was the most disheartening loss in the Mega Man cancellations of the early 2010s. The fact that Inafune went to work with Armature later seems to suggest he thought the team had potential. But what does that have to do with Mighty No. 9? Well, before we can answer that, we need to really talk about Dr. William White. The game's TV Tropes page has an entry under unintentionally unsympathetic about him, and that tells me that nobody was paying attention because there's no way it was unintentional. Despite his role, this man is not Dr. Light. He pays very little attention to his surroundings.
Just a moment. Sonda, has Call been functioning normally this entire time?
He's got an ego.
The structure is clever, concise. It's brilliant. There's no doubt it's my code.
He shows very little concern for the well-being of his own creations.
Cryo, I've told you. Never mind. You'll serve as an adequate distraction. Proceed, Beck.
It's revealed during the story that his original name was Bill Blackwell, and while Bill Blackwell and William White are excellent paired names, the reason why he's distanced himself from his family is unsaid. And when his father expresses concern that the entire problem was his fault for creating Trinity, he responds with this.
I'll show you. I'll show you and everyone else who doubted me.
leading to this final line from Blackwell.
Then only time will tell if this mighty number 9, this Beck, is a blessing or a curse.
Yeah, I think I can tell you that. Okay, but again, how is that connected to Maverick Hunter? Well, from the reports that surfaced when we found out the game even existed, the story was conceptualized as a trilogy, with X becoming more powerful and intelligent over the first 2 games, eventually leading to the 3rd game following Zero being forced to hunt him down, sort of revisiting the original intent for the first Mega Man Zero. Inafune seems to be the only common link between them all, so I'm forced to conclude that he really wanted to do a hero turns into the villain story, and the seeds were already being planted with Dr. White. Maybe he'd reprogram Beck and force him to come along, but that's just my own speculation. And it's far from the only loose end. As I said earlier, Graham's motivations are completely unexplored. Just saying money is the obvious out, but it requires there being some way Trinity's abilities could be monetized or sold. During the prison break, Carl wonders why all the mighty numbers are so weird, particularly why Beck was programmed to be hesitant towards violence. Since he doesn't seem to be the type to be concerned for humanitarian reasons like Light was with X, was White expecting him to fight in a non-sanctioned context? And for her own part, Carl asks Sonda why she was given an energy shield function and doesn't get a straight answer. Was there some reason why she needed, at minimum, to be able to defend herself? Because Trinity, by all visible metrics, has been restored, we don't have a Wily or Sigma function to constantly return as the final boss, so who was going to follow? Inafune has already attracted a heap of criticism for putting the cart before the horse when it comes to Mighty No. 9. I'd say there's a good chance he had a mythos planned that we can only hope he'll reveal on Twitter or something. But in the absence of any answers, that's the end of Mighty No. 9. At least, it is if you didn't buy any of the DLC. There's 2 pieces of DLC available. The first is Retro Hero, a retro skin for Beck that's actually just a Minecraft avatar. It looks horrible and you should never buy it. But the second, Vermilion Destroyer, that's a lot more interesting. Installing it adds a new stage to the menu from somebody that sounds like they have some personal connection to our protagonists, Dr. White specifically. And as soon as Beck goes to check it out, he's greeted by a dark, quiet hallway with a row of already dead robots, just enough to fill his reserve tank for the fight ahead. Already, the atmosphere is pretty different, more tense and disconcerting. They may have skimped on other aspects of the stage's presentation, as the infamous ad-libbed moaning in pain subtitle can attest to. For what it's worth, this was also fixed on the PC version. There is a stage here, but for the most part, the big draw is the 3 fights with Ray. Ray is this universe's equivalent to Zero, so she was already going to be popular. Yes, she. I love Inafune. He makes a character with so many feminine visual traits that many people have confused him for being a woman. Then he makes an XP of said character, makes the design far more androgynous, and declares that one as female. Even the game seems to be confused on the matter. The fights are fine, they take a lot of cues from Brand, though I feel like even the last one isn't as difficult. If a stage was all there was to the DLC, I'd say you'd be justified in calling it a ripoff. Thankfully, that's not it. Beating the stage unlocks Ray as a playable character, selectable by going up on a stage selection and swapping characters. I didn't talk about this in my original video because I never figured that out. But wow, a whole extra character as DLC, Mega Man 11 could never. And it's not just a bonus mode like Proto Man and Mega Man 9, she gets a story all her own. I'm not sure on the canonicity of it though. It has to happen parallel to Beck's story since Trinity's uprising is still the backdrop, but Ray also needs to fight the Mighty Numbers, which can't happen. I guess it could be non-canon, but then there's really no point in introducing a character only to immediately say their adventure isn't real. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And my biggest hang-up with it is because I don't want Ray to be irrelevant. Ray is really cool. There's obvious Zero parallels, but she's really more of their proto-man. A prototype by Dr. White in testing whether a robot could function without a central cell core, Ray's body is constantly deteriorating, and unlike Proto-Man who simply accepted his mortality and chose to live his remaining life on his own terms, Ray learned to kill, to feed, to survive. And everywhere she goes, she can hear a heartbeat, her existence counting down. We don't know if she ran away or if she was thrown out, I'd believe either, but she wants answers on why she was born just to suffer. But despite falling purely to the path of vengeance, she's not unintelligent, and I get the idea that even now, if she could be repaired, she could still live a normal life. Her theme is called Love Hidden Under the Mask, after all. She acts like she wants White dead, but she still talks with some sense of longing for her father. In a cast of one-dimensional archetypes that I must reiterate I still enjoy, Ray is an enigma for how much deeper she is, and that's definitely the reason I'm so fascinated with her. Ray gets the same stages and bosses that Beck did, with all the same obstacles, down to voice lines referring to Beck by name still being there.
Headline! Boss attacks again!
The difference is in her approach. As you might have guessed, Ray is the close-range fighter with her claws. Her few ranged options come from some of the weapons she gets, which are almost all different from Beck. Beck got Bat's explosives, Ray gets his machine gun. Though thankfully the order isn't different, each boss has the same weakness no matter which weapon triggers it, which saves valuable space in my brain. That's all well and good, it'd be enough to make her the Zero, but that's hardly her biggest differentiating factor. Ray's condition is not just flavor text, it plays a major role in her gameplay. Ray is constantly losing health, and while it can't kill her, it will bring her to the point where her entire life bar is red, and the next bit of damage will take it all away. She is a fragile lady, and she doesn't get any help from the other mighty numbers. Aside from the usual health items, her only method of staving off the hunger is by absorbing enemies, which restores all red health. And thankfully, she's better at that. Ray's dash acts as an attack all its own, and because she's a short-range character with an increased attack, most enemies don't put up any extra fight. No stop, just kill. I talked about Beck being a fun speed character. Ray goes so far beyond that, I would actually caution to take care of the finger hitting the dash button. And because she almost always has an active hitbox, enemies that are awkwardly placed aren't a problem anymore. So she has a more rushdown oriented playstyle with higher damage, avoids some of the contentious mechanics of the base game, and is even able to naturally bypass some of the bad stuff. I've heard some say that Ray is really the good character, like they're justifying the reception by saying, Mighty No. 9 is a bad game, but Ray specifically is fun. Ray is fun, but is she really the one you should be playing instead? In my opinion, the thing holding Ray back from being the replacement is her frailty. Bosses do not care about your dash, they are going through their patterns, and if you don't respect that, it is going to hurt. Even for somebody that has been playing this game for a decade, I died a lot more as Ray than I would with Beck. If you had infinite lives, that might be fine, plenty of time to experiment and learn, but that's simply not the case. Regardless of the character, I highly recommend going to the options and setting lives to 9, if only because I think infinite lives should be the standard, and this is as close as we can get. The fact that they give you the choice is nice. Maybe if Mega Man 11 did that, I'd play on normal instead of casual. And honestly, Ray just doesn't have much else going for her. Let's compare with Inti Creates' other Mega Man game earlier in 2016 that featured two playable characters, one being focused on range and the other a dashing madman. Copen's speed did play a large part in why he was so fun, but it wasn't just about straight dashes. They could be angled to ricochet off the walls, bounce off enemies, and it was about keeping a streak going with your limited bullets. It all required a lot more skill. Ray is just going fast, and that's okay, but there's less to really sink your teeth into. In that area, Beck has the advantage. Because he doesn't get that same ability to run headlong into every danger, Playing him efficiently requires smarter usage of every tool in his arsenal. Ray has to take more risks, and they don't always pay out. Like here, Pyro is still weak to Avi's weapon, which in Ray's case is a homing dash. But Pyro spends most of the fight on the sides of the arena covered in fire, and the dash that absorbs part of his health doesn't have the same collision, so Ray has a bad tendency to go straight through and take a hit she shouldn't be taking. At the end of the day, I can't definitively say one is better than the other. There's pros and cons to each, but Ray is at least good enough that her DLC is practically mandatory. At the end of her story, Ray goes to confront Trinity, which feels out of nowhere because her plot had nothing to do with Trinity, even though the two honestly do have a connection in their origins. She does not get a fight with Beck, they just recycle everything from the main game. What is this, Devil May Cry 3? Despite winning, Ray falls unconscious, only to wake up to Beck purifying her as he did the other Mighty Numbers. It seems her deterioration has stopped. Temporarily, because she begins to break down again during transit and escapes in a rage. And the experience seems to have corrupted her memory as she is forced to relive the cycle of torment once more. Boy, I sure can't wait to see where her character goes from here. Even though the Mighty No. 9 series was dead in the water as a result of the game's reputation, it wasn't quite the end. Beck had appeared in 2 games prior, one being a pre-order costume for Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z. This game's Metacritic scores are shockingly close to Mighty No. 9's, and that just furthers the allegations that nobody actually played this game, because I played Ninja Gaiden Z, that game is actual dog shit. There was also Mighty Gunvolt, a side game Inti Creates threw together to coincide with the release of the first Gunvolt game. It isn't much, but it's a cute little thing. Afterwards, however, the only life we've seen is 2017's Mighty Gunvolt Burst, a game that earned the title of what Mighty No. 9 should have been in practically every review upon release.
I don't get you people!
I don't want to go too into detail because we've gone on long enough already, but this is the one Inti Mega Man game I just straight up don't like. I haven't played it since it came out on 3DS, but I don't remember anything sticking out as particularly noteworthy, and I'm sorry, but I cannot stand the way they handled weapons. Making them all feel like the same weapon is far more egregious than making them clunky to scroll through. However, Beck, Call, and Ray all return as playable characters here, and they do have stories, so this might be the closest we get to proper continuations. It's a shame Mighty No. 9 never caught on, but I'm not going to act like I don't understand how it happened. Pre-release impressions can play a major part in a game's success. We just saw that with High Guard earlier this year. Even if games like Cyberpunk that had far worse releases than Mighty No. 9 were eventually able to shake their stigma, completely riding off the back of Rebecca being cute. It created a situation where people had every intention of wanting to hate the game, and the final product didn't do enough to prove them wrong. Though I think calling it a bad game is being hyperbolic. It's like people who call Kingdom Hearts 3 a bad game, or Sonic Forces a bad game. If you really think that, you have not played a real bad game. But yeah, Mighty No. 9 does have problems. I hope I illustrated enough of them to demonstrate I'm not blind to it. I might have accentuated it too much if anything. Reviewing Mega Man games is hard precisely because it's my favorite game series. I take their core strengths for granted. There's just no way to keep saying, yeah, this stuff is good, regular Mega Man. It's the reason I had to cancel the Zook Hero video last year, because the first game is shockingly good for a bootleg, so it would just be me saying it's a competent Mega Man game on loop. At the same time though, there's more to any form of art than just its measurable strengths. I played The Last of Us Blind on stream a while back, a game that was critically lauded from every publication and stole the rightful crown of Kotaku's 2013 Game of the Year from Monster Girl Quest Part 3. And sure, from all objective measures, it was extremely well made. But if the only things you like are the parts that can be objectively measured, you must be really boring. I found the game dull, the gameplay mindless, the characters uninteresting. I'd take Mighty No. 9 over The Last of Us any day, so parts of the game don't work out. Is that really so unusual? Mega Man 2 has long been heralded as the definitive classic Mega Man experience, but have you really looked at it? Because there's a lot of pretty dumb stuff in there. Even now, when I've seen more Mega Man fans prop up 4 as their favorite on the NES because it's finally past the growing pains, I still have my issues with it for a number of reasons. And I've heard plenty of people say they think Mega Man 9 pulls too much crap. I think that game's brilliant. Every single game is going to have this kind of uneven quality. Here's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Years ago, the Nostalgia Critic did an editorial called "Can a Film Be So Good It's Bad?" He posits the idea that it's possible for a movie to be so perfect, there's nothing interesting about it. Because it is those flaws, it is those contentious decisions, it is those human errors that make great art.
It's not a weak point. I like to think of it as a character flaw. People just aren't complete without some type of character flaw, don't you think?
The full playthrough I did for this recording, knowing I needed to note everything I wanted to talk about, was when I noted the problems the game has the most. But it might have also been the time I had the most fun playing it. You don't have to like the game, nobody has to like anything, but I wanted to get the word out there that there is an enjoyable game here for the audience that would like it, especially for the price. The game launched at $30, which is pretty nice, cheaper than Mega Man 11. And nowadays, not only are the discs still cheap, but with digital sales, no matter the platform, you can get the game with raised DLC for less than $5 practically any time, and that's one of the easiest recommendations of my life. Unless you live in Japan, of course, because their publisher, Spike Chunsoft, didn't renew the publishing agreement and the game disappeared there years ago. It really is a shame that Mighty No. 9 has been forgotten outside of a punchline, because there's not even anything fundamentally wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing that would doom a sequel that irons out its flaws outside of player reaction, because there's nothing inherently bad about the design. Hell, some of its problems could have been realistically worked out in a patch. And apparently even that's not a death sentence. Bubsy, a character that has been nothing but a joke for even longer than Mighty No. 9, and went underground with a much worse game, has not only gotten several revivals, but just released a new one that I hear is actually pretty good. If Bubsy apparently still has enough market potential and consumer goodwill to ship, I think Beck can do the same. So where is everybody now? Well, being the public face of the project, Inafune took all the blame, something he accepted and encouraged, which was nice of him. But maybe unearned? Based on the credits, he really was just the concept. Every issue you have with how the game turned out would have been Inti Creates. His Mega Man Legends successor, Red Ash, failed to meet its funding goal, though it was apparently picked up by a publisher regardless and then failed to materialize, although the tie-in OVA did eventually surface. Concept would be purchased by Level 5 in 2017, and Inafune would be set to work as the concept director on Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, before leaving the company in 2024 after poor internal playtests. He currently works for Rocket Studios, the developers that ported Bluepoint's work in the Metal Gear Solid HD Collection for the Master Collection. He also started promoting NFTs in 2022.
Damn it, man, I've been trying to be nice to you in your game, but I can't defend that!
Him and Inti Creates might still be on good terms, though I can't say anything for certain. Aside from Mighty Gunvolt Burst still coming to be, Inafune was also credited as the action supervisor on Gunvolt 3 in 2022. Now, we don't know exactly what that means, but we know that the game underwent heavy refinement between its first reveal and release, and we know Inafune offered some key suggestions for the first Gunvolt, so there's a chance his input played a key part in Gunvolt 3 being the best playing game in the series. Yet, Inti Creates has shown no interest in revisiting Mighty No. 9 again, outside of releasing a physical pack containing the Mighty Gunvolt games recently. Obviously, some of that is them wanting to avoid the bad press, but I wonder if Level 5 owns the IP now. At the very least, it would have been so cool if Ray could have been one of the DLC bosses in Gunvolt Chronicles 2. And Inti Creates themselves? They've managed to completely avoid any blowback from the game. Level 5 concept was officially dissolved earlier this year, and I learned about it from an article with a headline calling them the Mighty Number 9 developer.
You guys are making this too easy. You have to actually try to prove me wrong. None of you played the damn game.
Maybe Inti wanted to hide their association. The opening logos trigger a recording block on PlayStation and nothing else. As I said earlier, they've only grown by 4 employees in 10 years, but they've been consistently putting out multiple games a year for a while now, and nearly everything they do has been self-published, so I can only assume they're making enough back from each one to keep going. They even developed a game in some Love Live alternate universe thing, and... is this game good? I'm so far behind. I still need to play Galgun 1, Curse of the Moon, Card NCL, Majogami, and now Kingdom's Return is out and I liked the demo of that. Yeah, it's safe to say Inti Creates is doing just fine. So a happy 10 years to you, Beck. You may have shown that new things don't always work out and people will be stuck in their preconceived notions, but also that having an identity all your own is enough to win some over. Through the ups and the downs, you're mighty.
My name is Michael Yeganyan, mighty number 13947, and I am mighty.
Jeff Leon Sabolkin, mighty number 2591. I am mighty.
Mark King, mighty number 70126.